Here's something most financial advisors won't tell you, because most of them have never stopped to think about it either. There is a legal difference between what you think you own and what you actually own. And for most American families, that difference is the single most important structural fact about their financial life. Let me show you what I mean. Imagine the last time you walked into a restaurant wearing your coat. You handed it to the attendant at the door. They gave you a small, numbered ticket. And for the rest of that evening, you sat at your table completely at ease because you had the ticket, and the ticket meant your coat was safe. You never questioned it, why would you? Now think about your savings account tonight, your brokerage account, your 401k, that number glowing on your phone screen right now. You have a ticket. You do not have the coat. This is what we call the claim check economy, and nearly every dollar of middle-class wealth in America lives inside it, without most families ever realizing it. In ordinary times, this doesn't feel like a problem. The coat check system works. The attendant hands the coat back, the balance transfers, the retirement account processes, convenience replaces certainty, and no one notices the difference. But systemic stability has never been permanent. And the specific way your assets are held, not how much you've accumulated, but the legal structure underneath it, determines whether your family stands on solid ground when conditions shift, or whether you're standing in line with every other claimant, hoping the coat is still hanging on the hook where you left it. Most families spend years building wealth, without ever asking the one question that separates financial survivors from financial casualties. Do I own this, or do I have a receipt? In the next several minutes, we're going to trace the exact legal architecture of how your assets are held right now, from the most fragile position in the system all the way to what we call direct title. We'll map where your 401k, your savings, and your home actually fall on that spectrum. And we'll give you 3 concrete moves that shift any asset from a claim check into something that belongs legally and completely to your family. There's a specific moment near the end of this, a concept we call the legacy shield, that permanently changes how you think about estate planning. Stay with me until we get there. Here's how the claim check system became the default. 50 years ago, when you bought shares in a company, your name appeared on the official shareholder register. You held a physical certificate. You were, without ambiguity, the owner of record. Then something shifted, slowly then completely. The financial industry, in the name of convenience and efficiency, built a custody layer between investors and their assets. Today, your stock doesn't sit in your name. It sits in the name of your broker. Your broker's claim sits with a clearing institution. That clearing institution holds the actual registered position. You are several legal layers removed from the asset itself. Lawyers have a precise term for this arrangement: beneficial ownership. You benefit from the asset's performance, but you do not hold title. And title is the thing that matters when things break. The same structure applies to your bank deposits. When you deposit money into a bank account, you have, legally speaking, made an unsecured loan to that institution. The money belongs to the bank. You hold an unsecured claim. The FDIC provides limited insurance, but only within defined thresholds, and only while the system functions normally enough to honor them. The claim check economy operates at full scale, and most people have never seen it clearly. So let's build the map. At the bottom of the ownership hierarchy, the most fragile position you can hold is the unsecured bank deposit. Your checking account, your savings account. If the institution fails, you become a creditor. You wait in line. You receive what's left after senior obligations are satisfied. One level up, the standard brokerage account. Your stocks, your ETFs, your index funds, these sit in what's called street name, a legal arrangement where the registered title belongs to a clearinghouse, not to you. You own a claim on your broker's records. Your broker owns a claim on the clearing system's records, 3 layers from the underlying asset. Your 401k adds another variable. The assets inside your retirement account exist within a custodian structure your employer selected. You have contractual rights to access those funds under normal conditions. The phrase "normal conditions" is doing significant work in that sentence. Now here's where the ownership spectrum begins to change. Real estate held with your name directly on the deed is the first asset class where most families experience something close to actual ownership. You hold title. That title is recorded at the county level. It exists independently of any financial intermediary. If your bank closes, your deed doesn't change. Above that, physical precious metals held in your direct possession. Not a gold ETF, not a precious metals account with an allocated balance, physical metal in a vault that you control. This transfers the asset entirely outside the custody network. At the apex of the map, direct registration of your shares. Rather than holding equities through a broker in street name, you move them to the company's own transfer agent. Your name appears on the official shareholder register. No intermediary, no rehypothecation risk. Your name, your shares, direct title. Here's the part that reorganizes everything. Most people, when they hear financial security, think about diversification. Spread your assets across different classes, different sectors, different geographies. The conventional wisdom says don't put all your eggs in one basket. But diversification doesn't address the custody layer. You can hold a perfectly diversified portfolio, equities, bonds, real estate investment trusts, commodities, cash, and still be entirely within the claim check system. You've diversified your claims. You have not diversified your ownership. The critical question isn't what you hold, it's how it's held, and those are two completely different questions. Moving across the ownership spectrum isn't as frictionless as rebalancing a portfolio. Direct registration requires you to understand how transfer agents work and how to maintain positions outside your standard brokerage interface. Physical possession requires secure storage, insurance, and ongoing discipline. Clean, direct title real estate requires lien-free equity and a deed that accurately reflects your intent, not just a mortgage balance trending towards zero. Most families look at this friction and decide it isn't worth it. The convenience of the claim check system, the apps, the instant balances, the familiar interfaces feels like sufficient protection. In calm conditions, it is. But here's the honest question that no one is asking. Are calm conditions permanent? Institutions restructure. Banking systems experience stress. Market infrastructure freezes in ways that no one anticipated until it happened. History doesn't need to repeat itself precisely to produce similar outcomes. And the families who navigated those moments with the least damage were almost always the ones who had established at least one position, one real, legally clear, direct title position, outside the intermediary network. They weren't extreme, they weren't paranoid. They had simply asked the right question before the environment forced the question. Here's the three-step ownership reclaim. You don't move everything at once. You don't close your brokerage or abandon your 401k. What you do is establish what we call anchor positions, assets in your direct title that cannot be frozen, cannot be rehypothecated, and do not require institutional permission to access. Step 1. Identify your highest value exposure by custody fragility. Is the largest portion of your family's wealth sitting in a street name brokerage account, in a 401k with a single custodian, in a savings account above FDIC thresholds? That's your starting priority. Step 2. Move one asset to direct ownership. One equity position transferred to the company's transfer agent through direct registration. One allocation into physical metals you hold directly. One parcel of real estate with clean, unencumbered title in your name. You don't need to move everything. You need to establish a foothold on the ownership side of the line. Step 3. Structure for transfer. This is where the legacy shield begins. Assets held in direct title pass to your heirs with significantly less friction than assets held within institutional custodian systems. When your estate includes positions sitting in a brokerage account, those assets enter a legal and administrative process, probate, custodian verification, institutional gatekeeping, before your family can access them. When you hold direct title, a deed, a registered share position, a physically held asset, the transfer pathway is cleaner, faster, and far more resistant to institutional interference. The legacy shield isn't about how much wealth you build. It's about how much of it actually survives the transfer to the next generation intact. The families who understand this aren't the ones with the largest balances. They're the ones who stopped confusing the receipt for the asset itself. Direct ownership doesn't require you to distrust the financial system. It requires you to understand how it's actually built and to make deliberate decisions about where you stand within it. Financial autonomy isn't just about what you've accumulated. It's about the degree to which that accumulation belongs, legally and completely, to you and to the people who come after you. The line we've been tracing today is invisible in ordinary times. Most people never see it until a moment of stress makes it unmistakable, and by then, the cost of crossing it has risen considerably. The question isn't whether you trust the institutions currently holding your assets. It's whether trust should be the only layer of protection between your family and the wealth you've spent your life building. There's one more dimension to this we haven't covered yet: the specific legal structures that have historically been used to hold direct title assets across generations, and how those same structures are now accessible to families well before the high net worth threshold. That's the next video. Subscribe and turn on notifications. That conversation builds on everything we covered today, and it changes how you think about estate planning entirely.